Howard Brindley Thomas, born 16th of June 1932. Brindley, where does that come from? Is that a family name?
Not really. No, it's a Welsh name, well-known name, but
Yeah.
never know
Just happened to be a favourite.
where it's come from. No. I was born in Tewkesbury Street in Roath,
Right.
and then subsequently we moved to Rubina for a short spell when Dave was born. But my first recollections really are in Burlington Terrace, mainly because, of course, by that time the war was coming up.
Right. How old were you then?
I was 7 when the war started,
Right.
but certainly we had a very happy life at home. Dad was, I think, a big influence in my life. He was a very quiet, laid-back person. Didn't lose his temper at all. But he had determined ideas about what we should do with education, and interest in music particularly.
Yeah.
He was part of the Cardiff Male Voice Choir, and I always remember going to a couple of concerts with him over the years. But he had a clerical job on Cardiff Docks, very basic job. But I think my first record would be, to remind me of Dad, would be Callan Ram, on the record called A Nation Sings, recorded in the Albert Hall at a Gyman Vagani. So that's one piece I would like to have. Money was tight, let's face it. We weren't exactly a wealthy family.
Was that do you think the reason behind why he was so ambitious for you and Uncle Dave in terms of education and opportunities, that he didn't feel that he had those opportunities himself?
Oh, I'm sure that's right. Yes, I mean, he himself was brought up in Commott Street in the Docks area.
Right.
I got no recollection at all really of his parents and my grandparents.
So you didn't know them growing up?
No, I can't remember them at all.
Right.
But he certainly influenced me a lot. I always remember he had 3 sayings. And he said, never confuse your needs with your wants. Don't jump to conclusions, because they're usually the wrong ones.
Seems reasonable.
And always respect the other person's point of view, even if you don't agree with it. And I've always tried to follow
absolutely.
those.
Yeah. Difficult to disagree with those.
And of course he was influential in me starting in the music career.
Well, you say career.
Hobby. By starting in St Luke's Choir. He insisted I went to Sunday school, and St Luke's was the nearest Sunday school.
What age would you have been?
I'd have been about 9 or 10, but during the war, so yeah.
Used to hide in the bushes, didn't you?
Oh, well, that's right.
You didn't want to go.
It's a pity because I enjoyed the singing in the choir at St Luke's, but the minister changed, and he became a very high church. Wasn't my type at all. But I didn't say to Dad, I'm not going to go, because he would have insisted on. So I used to go week after week. And then in the end I decided to hide in the
bushes. You couldn't take it anymore.
In Victoria Park. I couldn't take it anymore.
But presumably you went along with your collection every week. And
well, I was caught out eventually because I hadn't realised a chap across the road, Mr Davis, was also in the church choir. And he met my dad out one day and said to Dad, well, Well, what's happened to Howard? Why didn't he come into choir anymore?
Mm-hmm.
Of course, Dad didn't. He didn't blow his top exactly, but he wasn't very happy with me. And insisted that if I wasn't going to St Luke's, I must go somewhere.
Mm.
So eventually, well, I decided then to make a few inquiries, and John Mills, who lived quite near, used to go to Wood Street. Well, I didn't
Right.
mention my mother very much, and
Well, yeah.
she had her hands full, yeah,
Mm.
house full. But during the war, of course, my aunt was bombed. She came to live with us with Peter,
Auntie Jess. Mm.
and my
Mm.
grandmother was there.
So Burlington Terrace was a terraced house, 3 beds,
Mm.
3 rooms downstairs, from what I can
Yeah.
remember. There was the front room, the middle room, and then
Yeah.
there was a sort of general
Kitchen.
kitchen, scullery area
Upstairs.
with a tiny kitchenette at the back.
Mm.
That's right.
And a roaring flame fire, I seem to remember.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Which Nan always used to burn the echo with, trying to
Yeah. Fan the
force the
fan
family
the fire up, that's right.
fire. Yeah. So not a small house for a number of adults to be brought
Wasn't
into.
a small house, was it? I would have said it was small. Because you
Well,
had middle rooms.
What do you think who it catered for at one time? With our family, plus Auntie Jess and Peter, and then my grandmother as well. Yeah, but
So there are three generations. And
all in the one house.
Peter was a young child.
Yes,
Yeah.
he was. He would be about 4 or 5 at the time. Mm.
Yeah, right. And that would have been typical if you had relations that were affected by the raids in the docks area.
Accommodation. Mm.
It would be automatic that people would take their relations in.
Well, they were living in Neville Street in Grain, in Canton,
Mm.
and in 1942 it was bombed.
Mm.
Of course, they had nowhere to go, so we had to take them in. But yes, it was the early days, but
How long did that last for? That they were living with you all?
I was only, well, they were a couple of years before they moved on again.
Mm.
But why I mentioned Mum, things were tight, money was tight, but we never went out, we always had something. But when you think during the war, all the main basic requirements we needed were shipped in from overseas.
Yeah.
And during the war, of course, the German U-boats were in the channel
Mm.
and blockading. So we were down to rationing. We all had our ration books.
Yeah.
But everything seemed to be, well, we all coped.
You don't remember going without food,
No.
feeling hungry?
No, we coped.
Mm. So what?
I always think there were 3 things really which got us through the war. Sounds daft to say it. Once was Vera Lynn singing her songs, Vera, We'll Keep Her Welcome, and White Cliffs of Dover.
Mm.
The second was Churchill's speeches. It was leadership, really proper leadership in those days.
Mm.
And his speeches were quite inspiring. And thirdly, the fact that we all seemed to get on. Everybody was in the same boat.
Yeah.
You know, our neighbours and everybody else.
Yeah.
But
Did you had an evacuee who came to stay with you, didn't you? They came
well, of
from
course,
London?
during the war from London, all the children were evacuated out. And we didn't take one because we didn't have any room in the
Full
house.
Mm.
But in Pensisley Road, which backed onto our lanes,
Mm.
they had a lad there from London. He'd been in his early, well, he'd have been our age, I think. But he came down, and as boys are, we took the mickey out of him because of his accent.
Mm.
Leslie Emmett, his name was.
Used to make fun of him.
Leslie Emmett.
It was a Cockney
Yeah.
lad, was it?
Oh, Cockney, yes, sorry.
Yeah.
I remember he used to say, "You pig," because we used to get up to him.
It's quite polite.
But, but yeah, when you think of it, all those children were bombed out. They had to go back eventually, but the early days they had no parents at all. They had to rely on evacuees. But we got through it, you know, the war. But all this happened all the school time, of course.
Yeah.
And at night, very often we spent the night partly down in our garden in the air raid shelter.
Mm.
Because very often you'd be in bed and suddenly the warning would
Brilliant
come
go, you'd have to get up.
to say that airplanes were coming over. So we had to go out and down.
There was a siren that went
The
to
siren,
warn you
yeah,
that the
yeah. And
planes were coming.
stay down in the shelter then until the all clear came.
Mm.
That was a different tone.
Mm.
But then
So-
back into bed then, get up in the morning
Yeah.
after school.
So each garden had a shelter that was dug for them by the council? Or so-
Well, you had to request one, but we had one for some reason. It dug the garden up, dug the trench,
Yeah.
had a corrugated iron sheet over it,
The top,
Yeah.
the shelter. And then, but my grandmother wouldn't come out, you know, she was
Right.
insisted if the warning went,
Yeah.
she'd stay indoors under the stairs.
She'd take her
She-
chances
you know,
rather than it
Yeah,
go up in the garden in a corrugated
Mm.
it's like-
shed. Yeah.
yeah.
Not sure if you had suffered a direct hit that you'd have come out of it particularly
Right,
well.
yeah.
But at least
No.
you were out of the house, I suppose.
But that was, she was a very determined person, very dogmatic, and she made her mind up, that was it, and she wasn't going to go. But then I'd walked in the morning, then, having been up half the night,
Yeah.
walked to Radnor Road School,
Yeah.
and I was there until I was 10.
So that's where Chapter Arts is now, I think. Is that right?
Not sure what's there now, on the corner of Radnor Road and
The school is still there.
Mm.
Well, the school is
On
still
the
there.
left
That's
hand
around
side.
that area.
I think it's still there.
I can see the playground now.
Mm.
Mm.
But there was a shelter
And the shelter.
in the playground. And if there was a warning during the day, people had to go into the shelter.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't cater for everybody. So if you lived near enough, as they put it,
Yeah.
you had to run home.
Right. Okay.
So I had to run home from Pembroke Road, which wasn't easy,
No.
get home to Burlington Terrace.
So
But,
run through Thompson's Park.
Yeah,
Yeah.
down to Davis Avenue.
Mm.
Um,
You said that after there was an air raid, the following day, there was evidence of the raid in
They kept
the
shrapnel.
streets.
yes, well, they were on Ely Racecourse, as it was known in those days.
Yeah.
They were the anti-aircraft guns. And of course, they used to fire the guns up at the planes, and the shrapnel and the metal
Yeah.
used to come down. So very often on the way to school, we'd walk and pick up bits of shrapnel and take them as souvenirs.
Right.
But then at 10 years of age, what happened then? Yes, I took the scholarship, they called them in those days. And if you passed the scholarship at a certain level, you went to Cardiff High School.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you went to Canton High School. Or if you failed, then away you went from there.
Mm.
But I got as far as Canton High. Dave was the brainy one. He got to Cardiff High. But I went to Canton. But then that was in 42. But in 1941 it was bombed. So when we moved
I see.
into Canton, there was only half a school there. So we spent most of our time partly in the library as a classroom, and otherwise there was a church
Mm.
opposite, and we had a schoolroom there.
Okay. So that's Market Road.
Market Road.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
where Chapter Arts is.
That's
now.
right.
Yeah.
That's
Yes.
Market Road.
Mm.
There was a Canton High for girls and a Canton High for boys. But I'm afraid we, as boys were in those days, we were in this reading room in Canton High, and the employee there in charge was a very sort of, not a very pleasant person at all.
Mm-hmm.
And when we used to go in for the class, we had to complete a form with our name. So the following day, very often, she'd read it out. We had some very interesting people here yesterday. We had Adolf Hitler, and it was she'd been, but that was us.
No real sense of humour then.
No, she didn't at all.
No.
So would there be a piece of music that reminds you of the sort of war period?
Yes, certainly during the war I mentioned the Vera Lynn record.
Quite close to
Quite Close to
Dover?
Dover.
Mm-hmm.
And the wording there is very appropriate, I think. Quite Close to Dover. One day we'll pick up the actual words just now, but they meant to be inspiring, and they did cheer you up a bit during the war. So yes, the Vera Lynn record.
So Vera Lynn and Winston Churchill kept your spirits up.
They did, yeah. Oh, yeah.
There'll be bluebirds over the white cliffs of Dover. Tomorrow, just you wait and see. There'll be love and laughter and peace ever after. Tomorrow, when the world is free. The shepherd will tend his sheep, the valley will bloom again, and Jimmy will go to sleep in his own little room again. There'll be bluebirds over the white.
You mentioned your dad was a keen musician, and you learned the violin at one point.
Oh yes, indeed, yes. He insisted on the violin.
Why are you laughing?
And yeah. But of course,
Can you imagine?
when he started playing the violin, even years later, it started very squeaky.
Mm.
Yeah.
We've all said
But,
that.
yeah. But Mum insisted that she wanted me to play Handel's Largo.
Okay,
She liked them.
that's a bit of a challenge, I'd have thought.
Well, it didn't sound much like Handel's Largo, but she certainly liked it. And I come to like it very much in later years. I particularly like Max Bruch's violin concerto, which shows you how you should play the piano, the violin, not And of course I also played in the school orchestra as well then,
Mhm.
and the school choir in Canton. One song which I used to sing in choir in Canton was Nymphs and Shepherds.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Nymphs and Shepherds,
Come away, come away.
News and shepherds come away.
Come away.
Yeah, there we are. That's,
So that would have been like a folk song, a traditional
that's right,
song.
yeah.
So 1945 the war ended, you'd have been 13. You still had your education to complete.
I passed the important subject, I suppose, in accounting. Passed my Central Welsh Board, they called them in those days.
Mhm.
But I didn't go on to university.
Is that the equivalent to O levels or GCSEs? A
That's
school
right.
certificate, was
Yeah,
it?
school certificate, yeah, that was the old level.
Mm.
But Dave went on to a higher level as well, and
Oh,
eventually
yeah.
ended up in
Mm.
university, but I didn't get as far as that. So when I was 16, Dad insisted on that he'd find me a job,
Yeah.
and he found me a job with the Ocean Coal Company in Cardiff Docks.
So he was working for the railways.
He worked
So-
on the docks and
yeah.
obviously had a connection with them.
Right.
Basically a clerical job in the office, and but he insisted I went for the interview. And he said, when you go there, don't talk about money, just ask him, is the job superannuated?
Does
I
it have
didn't
a
know what-
pension?
I didn't know what he meant.
Mm.
Of course it means that you contribute to a pension.
Mm.
But I always remember 30 shillings a week I got paid, which we were.
It's equivalent to
£1.50.
£1.50.
Yeah.
That was my starting salary.
Right.
But I stuck that. I was 16 then. That's right. I was there then until I was 18. I had to go and join the forces. So on your 18th birthday, you had to register to be available for national service.
Mm.
And in my case, I had to go into town on my birthday or thereabouts and register. It happened to coincide with a cricket match.
Yeah.
I was a very keen cricket supporter
Yeah,
in
so
Morgan,
Glamorgan played in the Arms Park,
which
at
is
that
on your
time,
walk across the road.
on Westgate Street. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I worked it out. I had time to watch some cricket
Yeah.
and then go across and register.
Yeah. Fine. Sounds
Which
good.
started off all right, but by the time I got across to register, I must have got carried away in the cricket a bit, and they were closed,
Ah.
so I couldn't register. And that was so I had a nasty letter then from somebody other, presumably the council, or the Air
War
Force,
Office.
saying that why hadn't I turned up for my. So by the time it was rearranged, then it was another 3 months. So instead of going in June 1950,
Mm.
it was October.
Mm.
By that time, the Korea War started between North Korea and South Korea.
Yeah.
And whereas I signed on originally for 18 months, by the time it was time for me to go, it was 2 years. So I had to serve an extra 6 months.
So the Korean War was between the Communist North and the Allies who were supporting South Korea,
That's right.
and anybody in the services may have had a posting
Could be eligible to go
to fight in
in Korea.
and you just avoided that.
Well, I went to
Yeah.
Padgate for 8 weeks to do my square bashing to get me fit to do
Yeah.
Army wise or Air Force wise.
Yeah.
And at the end of the time, my 8 weeks, some people went to Korea,
Mm.
but I went to Pembroke Dock.
That's
Bit
okay.
of a difference.
Yeah, just a bit.
So
Yeah. Did you enjoy national service? Because people either speak very fondly of it and suggest that it might be a good idea for today's youth to be involved in something similar, or they despised and resented their time.
I think everybody accepted they had to do the 18 months or 2 years as it turned out. But I couldn't take it seriously, I'm afraid.
Well, they couldn't take you seriously.
One or the other. You know, marching and
Yeah. All the square bashing stuff,
outside.
bearing arms.
I don't think I was cut up for that really. I remember on one occasion we were marching through Padgate, so-called part of training,
Hmm.
with a rifle, and your bayonet was in your jacket down the bottom,
Yeah.
and on command, fix bayonet. You walk along, they say
Explain it.
left, right, fix bayonets, and you had to fill up quickly and put it down. Of
Yeah.
course, in the haste,
Hmm.
I put it upside down.
Okay.
I put the pointing end down
So,
into the rifle.
Did anyone realise what you'd done?
They had noticed, yeah.
Ah.
So I forgot what the punishment was. There was some punishment.
Yeah.
But it wasn't easy because it was in it.
But let's get this clear. You were the only one who put the bayonet in the rifle upside down.
I think it must have been.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you said in the past that there was a sergeant major who took against you.
Well, that's right. They were. I forget what he was called. Drill instructor.
Horrible.
Drill instructor. And
Drill
I
instructor.
don't think he liked me because, for whatever reason, there was a little church. There was a chapel on the camp you could go to,
Yeah.
and I happened to say I went on this Sunday morning and came back and found out this parade. Without telling, I hadn't realised that while I was in church, they'd had this parade and I wasn't there. So this bloke didn't like. I said, well, I've been to church. You don't go to church, you come here. And so I think I got on the wrong side of him from the start, really. But anyway, it took me 8 weeks there eventually, and
So that was 8 weeks initial training before you went. You were posted somewhere.
it was so-called training to get you ready for
Yeah.
in case you were needed. But in my case, I went down to Pembroke Dock to an RAF station down there, where they catered for the Sunderland flying boats, or seaplanes you call them probably,
Mm-hmm.
on the Haven. And I don't quite know what they were used for really, but they were used to, certainly if there'd been a war at all, I think they would carry troops. They were quite bulky things. But I was in the stores, clerk in the stores, and I did my square bashing. By that time I got involved with Val for some reason, I don't know how.
For some reason.
And I had to, so I used to write home to her every day to make
Explain what a fascinating and fulfilling day you'd had.
So it got to the point in the end, every day it was, today the sun has been shining and I didn't do this and it must be boring. But each day I had to, if I stopped writing notes, she'd think I finished with it. So I had to write every day. But I came home on a weekend
Yeah.
and to see her on the weekend, didn't I?
Every weekend?
Hmm?
Every weekend?
Most
weekend, so
quite often, yeah.
on the train.
But on the train,
Yeah.
and then the train went back in the early hours of Monday morning. The train was 2:44 from General Station to get me back at camp in time to start my training again.
2:44
In the morning,
on Monday morning.
Monday morning.
Mm.
So
Wow.
my dad,
To get you back to do your square bashing.
no, I finished square bashing.
Oh, right, sorry.
No, this was Pembroke Dock.
Right. Yeah.
But Dad used to walk me down then from the house in Burlington Terrace
Yeah.
into town at 2 o'clock in the morning
Mm.
to get the 2:44 train. And he wasn't a fit man anyway. He was, well, all the time I knew him, but he was on to go with it. He used to smoke a lot. He used to smoke his pipe, but I'm sure it didn't do him much good.
No.
But he wasn't at all well.
But he'd take you at 2 o'clock in the morning, then go home and then have a full day's work.
That's right. Yeah.
Mm.
And he used to walk me home, didn't he? He used to walk
That's why I
me
used
to the Grove.
when I
yeah.
was in the forces.
Wouldn't let me go home on my own, so he used to walk me to the Belvedere.
So you used to visit them
Got
while
me- yeah.
Dad was away?
Yeah. Mm. And they drop me at the bottom of the grove and go back home.
Mm.
Be
And
insisted
of course, my
on
mummy,
me coming with me to the grove.
when we got married eventually, of course, they gave up half their house for us. They had a front bedroom, which was the best
Yeah.
bedroom.
Yeah.
They gave us that room to go in. And they had the middle room,
Yeah.
small room.
This is the same house in Burlington Terrace.
Burlington Terrace, yeah.
You mentioned it.
Yeah.
So you left the forces. You joined the Ocean Insurance Company.
Mm.
You got married in '54. You moved into Burlington Terrace with Nan and Bumpy
Yeah.
Thomas. Then you saved for a house in Felder Grove East, 61.
That's right.
There was a story about when Mike was born on Christmas Day, 56.
Yeah.
Is it right? You were having Sunday the Christmas lunch?
In the middle of the lunch.
We just sat down for lunch. And you said,
I think I better go.
"Better go, it's time to go." And your father said, "I think of better things to do on Christmas Day than this." he wasn't very pleased. But he got his car out anyway and took us up then to Northlands, which is
Yeah.
private. I don't quite know, looking back on it, how we could afford it. The three of you were all born in Northlands,
Mm.
which we had to pay for. I was quite happy to have a fortnight there. Thought of you coming home after a couple of days and having to look after you.
Yeah,
Um,
yes, it's a shock.
Oh
at the
no, I
best
was
of
quite
times.
happy.
Mm.
But that was 56, that's right. And then we moved to Greenwich Road. You were born in 59.
59, so I got very, very vague memories of Felder Grove East, 61,
Mm.
which is literally just a few doors down from 89
Yeah.
where you grew up.
Whereas 89 was an old house, 61 was a more modern house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was about 3, I think, 3 or 4, perhaps when we moved to Greenwich Road,
Yeah.
number 17,
Mm.
Yeah, that cost us £4,000 now.
Mm.
Greenwich Road.
When we sold it, 1950 in the Grove.
Yeah.
Greenwich Road was 4,000.
Mm.
And we were there for how many years? Oh dear,
Till 77.
77.
Summer
wasn't it?
77.
Mm.
Put that into some perspective, that house will now be worth around 400,000.
Mm.
Times move on.
But it was a lovely spot because it
It
was so
was,
near
yeah.
Victoria Park.
Yeah.
You know, we were just down the road and you were in the park.
Yeah.
Mm.
It's a good place to
Ideal.
grow up.
Mm.
You know, you could literally pick up a ball,
Yeah.
go over the park,
Yeah.
meet a bunch of mates,
With you and Lynn and
jumpers for
Yeah.
goalposts, be there all day.
Tarbert.
Yeah, we're friends are on the corner.
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah, that was
And the shop. Remember the shop?
3 shops,
Yeah.
three corner shops.
Yeah, there was one on the corner.
Mr. Moss
Yeah. That
Lewis's.
was the one down the road. And then
and one other on the corner of Halsbury,
Halsbury Road,
Yeah,
not Burlington Terrace,
Overton.
Overton.
and Clive Road. And they were just converted front rooms.
Yeah.
And they've all been reconverted now, they're
Mm.
normal houses.
Well, as a boy, I used to work Saturday mornings in Lewis's shop. Help deliver on a Saturday morning. Because what you did in those days with Lewis's, you rang up in the morning, ordered your food, what you wanted delivered, and Mrs. Lewis's, the old lady was there, would take the order, and then Lewis himself would deliver round the area. So Saturday morning I used to go out with him in his little black van, BNY 944.
So what was that again?
BNY 944 was
Right,
the number
okay.
of his van.
And how old would you have been at the time?
Well, my teens, was it?
So only 80 years ago, potentially. And you remember the registration number?
I can see it now. Yeah. Little black van. BN1944. Comes with the top. And it'd be all put up ready by Mrs. Lewis. And you just go and deliver it on the corn. But so it's funny, that was in my teens. But it was still there later on when we were living in Greenwich Road. Still we used to do the same thing. Still moving up Mrs. Lewis's.
Yeah.
Got the,
Well, we used to have deliveries every Friday from memory from a van. Was that Lewis or Moss? We used to turn up weekly. Used to hand the list in,
Mossy, wasn't it?
and they
Moss.
turn up.
no, the Lewis's, I think.
Lewis's,
Because we
wasn't it?
used to have deliveries of pop as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah.
And,
Oh yeah, that's
um,
pop. I just come not
Pop Man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alpine pop and bread.
Yeah.
It's
Baker's
baker's
come, yeah.
delivery.
Mm.
Dibbles. Dibbles bread.
Mm.
Drive Road, right, yeah.
Yeah, there were a few bakers around, weren't there?
Yeah, a few
Because
bakers
your father or grandfather had a bakery.
down in
Grange
Park
Town.
Road.
Hmm.
Hmm. I can see now we just walked down the garden and up the stairs and there was the bakery.
So all of these was so they'd be called artisanal cottage industries now. So that was literally a house in Grangetown that
Yeah.
had a converted garage at the bottom of the
Garden,
garden.
they used to
It
go
was a
up the
bakery.
steps to the bakery.
Mm.
And their friends at the house was a florist.
All right.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, it was a florist.
Okay. So you had a florist
Yeah.
at the front and a baker's
Down
at
the
the back.
front.
And
Yeah,
you
and
lived
used
in
to
the main
walk down
house.
the long passage to the kitchen.
They used to deliver bread to Insole, didn't they? Your grandfather.
Mm.
So it's funny that subsequently we got involved with Insole.
Yeah. Oh, this is before Insole
Oh,
was
it's still
given
in
to
those days, it was
the,
still owned by the Insole
public.
family.
It was just the family
Mm.
concern. Yeah. So when your dad passed on his love of music to you, I mean that's been quite successful in passed down the generations, which we can come to later. I don't remember that much music being played at home, but the thing that you definitely passed on was the sport connection, the enthusiasm was there. You mentioned earlier on the bit about almost missing your national service because you were across the road
Yeah.
watching Glamorgan. That
Yeah.
would have been around the time that Glamorgan won the county championship in about 48.
Yeah.
Well, the next time they won it was 69. Well, I was a junior member, and then we had to wait until you were a junior member, Chris, a short leg, it's gone in to 97. 97. So again, that's something else that's continued on through the generation.
Yeah,
And I know
yeah.
you've still retained memories of the earlier teams.
Yes, oh yeah. Well, cricket and
And football.
football. I mean, on the cricket side, I played for Cardiff Youth cricket side,
Yeah.
and the same team of me was Billy Boston. And I know you it wouldn't mean a thing to you, but
Very, very famous
Billy Boston
rugby league player.
Yeah.
went to Rugby League North eventually,
Yeah.
and he was a world class player.
Mm.
But it's interesting to get his story sometime. But he was in the same team as me in the Cardiff Youth,
Yeah.
cricket side.
But the story is he went north
He went north
because
eventually.
he couldn't get
But he came from Tiger Bay. He was
a deal down here.
he was living in Tiger Bay, in the docks,
Mm.
and in 19. That's right, the cricket. Then football, yes, I always supported the City.
I used to watch the City.
Cyril Spears was the manager in those days.
Who did you go to see
No,
with?
and I used to go watch them.
You and your mate just used to hop down, yeah?
Hmm?
You used to stand on the ball bank?
Yeah.
Did
Yeah,
you?
go down. Yeah,
Well, as teenagers?
yeah.
Yeah.
Margaret and I. Yeah.
Okay. Can you remember any players from that era?
No,
I bet Dad can.
Yeah, but I can't
Oh, I
really
can tell you.
remember.
There was Danny Canning in goal. Buller Lever, and offshore with the fullbacks.
Uh-huh.
Of course, my dad was.
Stan Hollyman, Fred Stansfield, and Billy Baker.
That's the midfield, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Colin Gibson, Billy Reese, Stan Richards, Bryn Allen, and Roy Clark. That was more or less the side that I can recall in the early days.
Late 40s.
Al Sherwood was all my style. He was left back, captain of the side.
Okay.
But,
I recognise the name. Did he captain Wales?
I think so, yeah.
Did it?
My dad went every Saturday, regardless of who was playing. He just got on his bike and just went down. Just watched
Yeah.
football.
I remember he used to go down on his bike and park up
Yeah,
in a friend's house.
yeah,
I quite often saw him, his bicycle clips,
yeah.
walking to the
People who went to the
ground.
church, I can't remember the name now. Yeah.
But I always think that it seems a bit unfair that this current generation, I mean Elizabeth was like still almost a kid and she's at Wembley Stadium watching an FA Cup final. I mean, you came to the semi-final with us, didn't you, against Barnsley,
Yeah,
2008.
I remember that.
And that was the nearest you've got to Wembley since, well, your entire life. I mean, we were in 27, 5 years before you were born, and not a lot in the interim. So, yeah, so
Yeah,
these
change.
enthusiasms you passed down the generations.
I think so, yeah. Same with my music interests. I always feel it. I'm glad to hear that Isabel now is singing in that
Yeah.
choir in Austria, in the cathedral. It's quite an achievement to get there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And now, of course, Freya's coming along playing the piano. So it's nice to know that the music connection is still
Yeah,
there.
all those musical genes passed me by. But Andrew, I mean,
And of course,
Yeah.
spent many years playing live in various formats.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's certainly an interest that's worth cultivating. You know, my style of music basically is light classical mainly. I don't like opera much, and I don't like heavy stuff as well. But now my eyesight not being what it ought to be, I rely much more now on the radio, on the sound. I do that. I play all sorts of stuff on the YouTube now that I like. It's amazing what you can get on there. And of course, Isabel was singing in her school choir years and years ago. That's when I first heard that song, Cantique de Jean Racine, which she sang in the choir again in school.
So you came back after national service.
Mm-hmm.
You left the ocean insurance company. You went to another insurance company.
I started off as on the underwriting side and finished up as underwriting manager. About 30 people roughly to look after. So it's quite an achievement to get that far.
Did you take professional exams, qualifications for that?
Yes, oh yes,
Yeah, it did.
yes,
So you were studying when we were small kids at
Yeah.
home.
yeah.
Can't have been easy.
Associated with the Chartered Insurance Institute, ACII, that's right. Yes, so I did all that.
You worked in Greyfriars Road in town?
Greyfriars Road, yeah. It grew into quite a big job because I was involved then in liability insurance was my speciality. and I was visiting places in Bristol and in Plymouth branch, could run to see them. So I was to drive the car down and do work down there in Exeter and Plymouth. I remember in Exeter, the manager in Exeter was a very miserly person. Had to do he was very tight on money. He even had in the toilet, he had a notice pinned up in the wall. Please make sure you use both sides of the toilet paper. And that was his idea of being, miserly, I suppose. But I thought that's gone a bit too far. But yeah, so quite a big branch in Exeter, Plymouth, Bristol, which I covered from Cardiff and driving the car.
Travelled around a bit. You spent the bulk of your career in Alby House, Greyfriars Road.
Yeah.
Was there ever a chance to move to a bigger branch or for senior promotion?
Oh yes, I could have gone to a bigger branch or even to London head office eventually. But it would have meant moving away. I can't remember the exact timing of it, but I'm sure.
You'd have had a young family.
I'm sure we had a family
which
which.
uprooting us
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
As the, I don't know, do you want to talk much about having 3 boys at home?
You're 3 normal boys.
Define
Well,
normal.
Are you on the air now at all?
Very funny.
Yeah, so we're on there.
Yeah, well, obviously 3 boys and roughly 3 year
3
difference
years
between
apart.
most of them.
Mm.
All with different personalities. I won't go into all that exactly. But they all had different ideas, different interests.
Andrew was sort of on the musical side, wasn't he?
He was, yeah.
Yeah.
And they were all different weights. We started off, I think Michael was £8. Martin was 10.4 and Andrew was 11.
Mm.
By the time we got £11, he was quite a sight, I'm afraid. Well, you were quite a sight. Almost embarrassed to go out. Middle of the summer, it was a hot summer, and he was late again. But that's,
Oh, yeah.
But late again, not for the
that's
first
all.
time.
That's all.
A never-ending story.
He's never changed that. But yeah, no, there were never any trouble. I'll be honest.
No,
We
no.
never any
It was
difficulty.
8, 8, 10 for £11.
Yeah,
Mm.
but no difficulties. Yeah, we had our difficult times in terms of finance from time to time, but we
Yeah,
got
can't be
over
easy.
it all.
But Mum's job at the schools, dinner lady, must have
Yeah.
paid for all the luxuries.
Oh, that's right, he did it.
Am I right, you were in Greenwich Road at the time,
Yeah.
and
I used to
when
walk up.
Andrew started school you wanted something else to do.
Mm.
I think that was around 1970, was it you started up here? In
Yes, it was a
Landers
good
Juniors?
thing. Yeah. Mm.
And then stuck it out for the next 40 odd years.
Yes.
But how old were you when you retired, Mum?
Mm. Can't remember.
I'm not sure she did retire.
Huh?
I'm not sure you ever have retired. But
I just remember every September the headmaster saying, "Will you be back with us this year, Mrs. Thomas?" You were in your 80s when you finished.
yeah, definitely.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Mm. Mm.
I'm not sure the authorities knew.
No. It was very convenient then. I mean, it was just up the road, wasn't it?
And people still recognise you, don't they?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Because you probably
This
had-
lady, I was walking down the road one day and saying, "This must be the lady."
generations.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, and Beryl was worked there as well. And Audrey.
So as a group of
Audrey
friends
Rose, yeah.
all worked in the kitchen.
I can remember I used to come out because I was working like different to them.
Hmm.
And I used to be walking down the road and he'd still be yapping on the corner. And I
No
was on my way
surprise.
home. Surprise, surprise.
So as we got older and you had more free time, I mean we had great holidays as kids, but West Wales.
Hmm.
Well, certainly
Yeah,
holiday
Cornwall.
time. Yeah, we did a fair amount of talk. West Wales seemed to be our favourite place
Yeah.
for holidays. Often wonder how on earth we ever got in the Ford Popular car we had.
Yeah.
Very often my mother would come as well with us.
Yes.
We'd have all the luggage on the roof
Hmm.
and the kids in the back and mum. And used to drive down to West Wales there. Newgale.
And it took
Roadhaven,
hours and hours
Roadhaven.
in those days. There were no motorways.
Mm. We went by train once or twice, didn't we? We did go by train.
I think we did, I can't remember.
Yeah.
Certainly the car was very,
Mm.
very useful. In fact, one occasion we were in Newgale and parked the car on a hill and left you inside the car while we went into the
Wayne?
house. And the next thing I know, you were walking in with the steering wheel in your hand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Came off in your hand.
Have you taken the steering off?
So how on earth are we going to get home now? We had us in the steering wheel.
Oh, plus you travelled from Cardiff all the way, hours and hours,
Yeah.
down some dodgy roads
Must
to
have been a bit
West
loose
Wales
then, yeah.
with a loose steering wheel.
Yeah. So Uncle Fred was in Milford Haven then, wasn't he? Uncle Fred and Auntie Nance.
Uncle Fred came and fixed it.
He came and fixed it.
Yeah.
But otherwise we'd have been.
Yeah.
So although it was a difficult thing to do, at least if you hadn't done it then it could have happened
Absolutely.
on the way home.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we were lucky really. Mm.
But no, we had a lot of nice holidays.
When we moved on, because of the scope for more exotic holidays.
Mm.
Oh indeed, we've been around this country and abroad. Thinking of
Oh,
been to the
Switzerland was
Scilly
lovely,
Isles.
wasn't it?
Hmm?
Monaghan.
Oh, Switzerland, yeah.
Yeah.
We went to Switzerland for the best, 20 years I reckon, on and off, just about.
Mm.
Used to meet the same people over there every week,
Yeah.
every year.
Interlaken?
Yeah.
Place called Bonnigan on Lake
Yeah,
Brienz.
it's outside Interlaken.
Mm-hmm.
We used to be able to walk along the river into Interlaken. And sometimes we used to
On
catch
Lake
the
Brienz
boat.
itself, it was Brienz,
Mm.
Ieselwald,
Yeah,
Oberid,
yeah.
and Brienz at the far end of
Yeah.
the lake this way. But stayed in the Sila or Lac in Bonnigan.
Yeah.
When you retired, you did was it a 3-week tour of Canada?
We did, yes,
Yes.
retirement holiday, that was basically.
Hmm.
I remember Ottawa, Quebec, Vancouver. Oh, we did a fair bit of travelling about. And in this country alone, we went to Scilly Isles, Jersey,
Sidmouth?
no,
Sidmouth,
Once or
our
twice.
favourite
That's
spot.
over the years. Hmm.
I love Sidmouth.
yes,
Yeah.
well, we started off playing in a different hotel, I forget what it was called now.
The Belmont?
No, the Belmont, we ended up in Belmont. Before then, we were in a hotel on the hill that's been knocked down now anyway. Yes, we did all that.
There we are.
So your social life revolved around the church.
Yes.
And you used to go to concerts with
Yeah.
friends from church?
Yes, we went when Woodstock was closed, we then went on to Windsor Place Church, and I was joint treasurer there with Gerald Meek, who's the H.U. Meek, the shoe people.
Mm.
But then by that time, you were all going to Fairwater Junior Church,
Yeah.
Presbyterian?
Third Presbyterian.
Yeah.
So I gave it up at Windsor Place and joined Fairwater. And as these things tend to happen, I was elected an elder very quickly. And then Ken Goodwin, who was the treasurer, retired. So that I was put in that job as well. So I've always been involved with
Hmm.
money-wise. And I was chairman of the guild. We used to meet on a Thursday in guild. About 30 of us. I think, looking at the names in those days, There's probably about three or four left now. They've all gone.
So, did you attend concerts with friends? Because St David's Hall
Yes,
often
with
in
Yes,
the early
yeah.
80s
Cheryl and Ken.
seems to be there quite often. Any particular concerts there that...
Well, there was 6 and 9. There were mainly classical concerts.
Yeah.
But on one occasion we went there with, it would have been Bell and David Thomas, wouldn't it, Neil and I,
Yeah.
to hear Stuart Burrows, who was a tenor in those days. And he was the principal guest. But then in the course of his concert, he said, "I got a young lad with me who I'm sure will go a long way. And I'd like him to come on now and introduce him to him." He brought on Aled Jones. I'm talking about now, over 50 years ago. Aled Jones would have been about 8 or 9, I think, because he was there on the stage with Stuart Burrows. And then he said, to close the concert now, we're going to sing a duet. And he and Aled Jones sang a duet, Panis Angelicus.
Did you go to the theatre a lot, films? Because you obviously had time now to yourselves once we left the fold.
No, not so much. But certainly the theatre, which St David's Hall would be attached to that, but not the cinema. We weren't attached to the cinema very much.
Go to a lot.
But there are certain pieces of music, but lots of them quite popular music from films, without necessarily having to see the films.
Yeah.
You know, I think like Oklahoma and Sound of Music,
Songs from the shows.
songs from the shows, and Dancing with Wolves, I like that one.
Okay.
And then Ladies in Lavender is a particular one. I'm trying to play that quite often on my YouTube.
Well, it's ideal, isn't it? You can get anything you want on YouTube. It's really coming to.
You say that, I'm sure you're right, but I feel the world,
Try anyway.
world of technology has passed us by.
Well,
You know, the YouTubes and iPads and...
So going back to technologies, as I say, you finished work in '91. Did you have any concerns about what you might do with your retirement? I mean, your bowls career was obviously
well, that's one thing.
well underway.
I'd gone, my bowls goes back to the 1970s, I suppose, originally. But it gave me more time once I retired to obviously play more. But yes, I got very much involved with the bowls, mainly through the person I used to deal with in work a lot. I forget his name now. He used to live on the corner of Cardiff Road and Pendale anyway. Oliver Davey.
Okay. Is he involved in the church?
No.
No,
I
not
thought he was.
No, well, not
I'd
our
scrap
church
that.
anyway. But with work I did a lot with him. And he happened to say one day, I was, by that stage I'd finished playing cricket.
Okay.
And looking for something to
Yeah.
occupy my life.
So you've been in your 30s, 40s? Or?
In the 40s, in 1970 I'd been in my 40s.
Mm.
And I was still there 30 odd years later.
Mm.
more than that.
Had some fagons.
Had some fagons, yeah.
What sort of level did you get to?
Well, I started off, I seemed to take to it pretty well. I started winning competitions and playing in the club. I won the club championship a couple of times, which
Mm-hmm.
much to everyone's surprise because there were people who've been there for years.
All
And,
right. Okay.
and I entered one year the over 70s, I think it was, on a county basis.
Mm-hmm.
I went through all the early rounds in the county.
Yeah.
And I had to go then to London Wales.
But for the national
To the nationals.
national title.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
And we got and as it happened, the championship for that county was a member of London and Wales. And of course he had the advantage of his home green.
So green.
And with bowls, the green is important because they vary from club to club. And
Okay.
he won me there, so we were a bit disgraced.
All right.
But at least I got something to show for it.
Yeah.
And,
There was a piece in the Echo, wasn't there?
I think there was, yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure I remember seeing an extract from the Echo.
Oh, I had a few extracts in my time. I've gone back to my cricketing days.
Okay.
I remember in playing for Cardiff Youth.
Mm.
Alongside Billy Boston. Do you remember
Yeah.
Billy Boston?
Yes. Yeah.
He became a
Rugby
national
player.
Welsh international rugby league player.
Yeah.
And one of the very, well, quite famous, wasn't he, in his
Oh,
time?
very. Yeah. It's a move north, didn't he? To.
And we had to play Cardiff
Yes,
Youth
yeah.
place, further they played now, on Ely Racecourse. And I got that picture was in the Echo. Yeah, I've always been interested in sport at one level, but going back to the bowls, Mum got involved as well, making the teas
Oh, well done, Mum.
Oh, yes.
Important role.
on Saturday afternoons.
Know your place in the kitchen.
Making teas, yeah.
So you never thought of taking it up, Mum? Never thought
Oh,
of taking up bowls?
no.
No, not your thing.
I still got my bowls, my bag, my whites.
And your trophies
Can't ever
upstairs?
see me use. Oh, no, I put trophies up there, yeah. In fact, I played, well, my last game with St. Fagans was, I can almost date it. Mum went into the hospital for treatment and what it was, some operation you had, didn't you? Go back a while ago, not long before Julia's wedding.
Okay.
In fact, we were a bit surprised that we even got to Julia's wedding because
Yeah.
Mum was, but I gave bowls at the same time as that. I thought it's a good time
Yeah.
to give it up.
Mm.
But so I played all those years and
Mm. I seem to remember you got involved over in Seoul. There was a campaign to preserve the building. But
so
you used to, I think you went to, was it music appreciation lessons there as well?
yes,
soon after
at
you
that
finished?
stage Insole was a very, because still it had moved from private ownership and the council had got involved and taken it over, and the building was used, a large room that was there was used for various functions. One was musical appreciation,
Mm.
which was run by the lady down the road, Miss Wines, isn't it?
It's fine, so.
Very interesting that was. She's very knowledgeable. She lecture on music and various aspects of it.
Interesting. Mm.
And on certain days of the week, Saturday morning it would be mainly, wasn't it? That room was used as a library,
Yeah, for many years.
and we used
Yeah.
to meet, well, local people would meet up in the library.
Mm.
And then the word got around that they were going to close the library. Well, it was pretty obvious if they closed the library, there'd be no other need to keep the building, and more than likely the building would be knocked down, and more than likely you'd get the ground used for building.
Yeah. Mm.
So John Isaacs and I, well, and one or two others at the time, felt this mustn't happen, and we canvassed people around the houses, and the amazing support for it. Everyone was saying, well, don't let it go.
Mm.
So we formed a committee, we called it the Insole Group Action Group.
Yeah.
Insole Court Action Group, that's it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And John Shepherd was chairman, and John Isaacs was vice chairman. And I got involved in the committee, and there were others involved, Garth Lloyd and Jim Davis, and a number of us.
So these were all people, because I mean John Isaacs was our headmaster
Oh, that's right, yeah.
These were people who were used to, you know, speaking in public.
Oh,
and,
indeed, yeah.
Probably quite a
So we phoned,
good group of people to have on it.
we did, it was a good canvas,
Mm.
and we, with the support that we had, we decided to call ourselves Insel Court Action Group
Yeah.
and prepare banners with the,
Mm.
Yeah, by the
saying
City
Insel
Hall.
Court.
Mm.
And we heard that there was going to be a meeting of the council to make a decision on this. And so we all got our banners and went down to the
Stormed the City Hall.
outside City
Yeah.
Hall, and cut a long story short,
You won.
we certainly got the
Mm.
support of the council then and
Mm.
took it on from there.
Mm.
And it's amazing ever since then how much the court is used, because people come from all over the place now to,
Absolutely.
and we were concerned in a way that by building a car park there, it would spoil the whole thing. But it was done very tastefully,
Oh, it's very good.
very, you know.
Well, it's still, I've heard it described as a hidden jewel. You know, people still from
Well, they
other
do, yeah.
suburbs in Cardiff even are
Mm.
You can tell from the
not
car
aware
park.
it's there.
Because I've said to people in the music group, you know, some about in Soul Court,
Yeah.
do you know where it is and what have you? They didn't know.
Strange.
So I said, well, you know, it's not just off Western
Yeah.
Avenue, you know, in the back at the back there.
Oh, it's
So
certainly
they were
is.
interested, you know.
So I mean, you effectively you saved it. Your group saved it for the community.
Well, I think we did.
Yeah.
You know, principally John Isaacs and John Shepherd. But then we decided after that, having got this committee to go in, that we should take advantage of this now and form a committee for the general interest of Insol, all the houses around.
Yeah.
And John asked me to become the first chairman of it. So I got involved with all sorts of meetings then with the school in particular, because the school at that stage, you couldn't go anywhere near the school grounds for obvious security reasons. But we couldn't see why we couldn't go through outside school hours.
Mm.
Anyway, we had a meeting, umpteen meetings with the headmaster, who wouldn't budge at all. And the chairman of governors then, who was a very pompous bloke, quite a big noise in the cathedral. And he used to come to these meetings with John and myself there. I said to him on one occasion, he kept saying, no, security, we mustn't have it. I said, well, what security are you talking about? We're talking about going through outside school hours when there's no children about. Oh no. So I said, you go to the cathedral? Yes, he said, yes. I said, so presumably you're a Christian? Yeah. I said, well, you know, what is the principle of Christianity is to help people less fortunate than yourselves. You want to finish sharing around, didn't you?
Because they were quite elderly people
Oh, yeah.
who needed to use it as a shortcut to the village.
Yeah.
But what is at the moment, mainly young people now, in Saltcote, what's the name of the road, leading up towards school, in those days they were almost all elderly people. And you know, to get to Insall Court, to get to the village from there, means walking all the way down the road past our house, round the corner, up Cardiff
Up the
Road,
hill.
and
Mm.
well, it was sort of non really, but it went years, and I think somebody said it took 6 years. Didn't seem that long, but it certainly took a long time before the headmaster retired, and somebody asked him along, took it over, and straight away she could see the point. She said,
Yeah.
yes, and we agreed, and we arranged a committee to sort out the organisation of it, and we had keys produced which we could be used only outside school hours where there's no risk of any security. And then that took, I think that's about 6 years it took to get that far.
Mm.
Then I thought I've had enough of this.
Yeah.
So I retired then and
Yeah.
handed it
But
over
wasn't
to
there
Graham Hosgood.
an issue with the naming of the residents group at one point?
Yes, that's an embarrassment at the time, but we decided now we would call ourselves the Insall the Insall Residents Association.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
it seemed to be generally accepted, that was a good idea.
Yeah.
And John went home and told his wife. And Brenda said, you know what that means, don't you? He said, no. The IRA. And this was in the middle of
Local terrorist organisation. Fighting for the
Freedom fighters.
independence of the...
And it was right in the middle of all this happened when
I mean, storming the city hall with banners is one thing, but yeah.
yeah, as I said, it happened in the middle of all
Unnecessary.
the trouble in Ireland.
Yeah.
It was
Mm.
bang on the middle. So we had to put the E in then in so
Yeah.
estate versus association. But that worked very efficiently for 6 years, if I say so myself. And then I handed it over, and Graham took over for a while, and I kept my membership going. But not long afterwards, there was another change of headmistress, and she wants to go back to the original idea. Well, I left by this time. I was off the committee. And to cut a long story short, they gave in and said, "Oh, we agree," and we had to hand the keys back.
Yeah,
So all the time we spent getting those keys, and even now we can't go up in it. There's no way we can walk up to the village. We could have cut through. But so we're back to square one. I just feel even now that we could have made a stronger case of it. But anyway, the new committee decided. Well, they kept very quiet about it. We kept.
And that fine.
I kept reminding them, and
They come here for a drink. I'm sorry.
so anyway, that was my interest in the court.
So,
So it took a fair bit of my time, let's be
yeah,
honest.
yes. And when you retired, then Chris would have been 5, Julia 7, Mike's kids.
Well, that was another reason why I gave the book.
So you'd have had about, yes, you said 5 grandchildren about the time you retired. So
And it kept growing.
plenty to do. I kept going, yes, so right. Hasn't stopped yet.
Now it's got as far as 12 grandchildren and 4 great-grandchildren, and 16. And it's
Yeah. I
and
mean, it's a bit of a test, but it is. Could you reckon you could name them all in chronological order?
In any order, let's
I
Any
won't
order,
go
too.
chronological order, but yes, there's Julia, Christopher, Elizabeth.
Isabel.
No, don't.
Sorry.
Isabel, George, Luke, and Molly. I include those because even though they're not Andrew's direct children, I would call them in as
Absolutely.
they're all together. You know, they're part of the family.
Yeah.
And then there's David, James, and Daniel. How many have we got?
I think that's all the grandchildren. All's left with now is the great grandchildren.
Great-grandchildren. Did I mention James and Grace? Because they're children.
No.
Well, James and Grace are grandchildren.
Yeah, of course.
Then the great-grandchildren would be Arthur, Grace, Freya, and Manny.
Well done.
I think that's all.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, obviously we thoroughly enjoyed sharing in their growing up and in the progress that they've made since. They've all gone in different directions, different ages obviously, and even geographically. So, you know,
Yes.
all over the place.
Spread out
But
from.
we take great pride in all of them. You know, looking back and then looking forward, a lot more to come. But it's given us a great deal of pleasure to be able to share the time with the grandchildren and the great-grandchildren.
The music theme is quite interesting, isn't it? Because going back to your father's interest in music, feeding all the way through, and now we've got Freya's playing piano. I'm sure the great grandchildren will have the opportunity Is there a particular piano piece that is a favourite?
Yes, I mean, again, it's nice to see it happening, you know, she's very keen on lucky to have the piano, aren't they? Well,
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yes.
but she
Baby
does
grand.
play it and she's got the idea.
Yeah.
I'm not sure one day she'll get to this level, but I like Beethoven's Pathetique Sonata, which is one of my favourites.
Yes, well, we'll give her a couple of years yet.
Something to aim for.
Are there any favourites that you wouldn't be without?
Well, yes, if I had a 1 to 10, you know, number one would be the slow movement of Max Bruch's violin concerto. Second movement, I think it is, it's slow movement.
And I think you mentioned Handel's Messiah as being up there as well.
Oh, I'm going to say at the end, to finish up the whole programme of this recording, I'd like something to remind me, if I was on a desert island, of the old country.
Mm.
I think it would be Hallelujah chorus from the Messiah.
Mhm. So the format is now that you have to choose one particular disc of those that you've chosen. That if the others floated out to sea, which one would you save?
The Max Bruch.
Right, the Bruch violin concerto. And you are granted the Bible, not sure which version, of your choice, no doubt, and the works, entire works of Shakespeare, and one favourite book.
Well, as I said before, I'm not particularly keen book reader as such, but I like autobiographies, and John Humphrey's is one which I would take with me. But I wouldn't be able to read it, of course. But anyway,
Nice to have.
Yeah.
Block Boy. In addition, you're allowed one luxury item to take with you. What might that be?
I think
You're
that
not allowed to take Mum. She'd be regarded as practical and of some
She wouldn't come
some
anyway.
use to you. So yeah, you're not invited.
No.
No.
Well, in view of my situation, I want to take a radio with me.
Hmm.
Something simple I can operate.
What was a wind-up radio or a
Anything.
solar-powered radio?
Yeah, something simple I can operate without having to use too much technology.
Hmm. Catch up with world affairs and
And play some music.
yeah, and see how the city are doing.
We haven't mentioned them at
What
all.
more could you want?
No, I often think of Berlin when she's had real. There'd be bluebirds over the cliffs of
That
Dover.
went through my mind.
Mm.
I used to do
Yeah,
that.
I don't know whether the city
Not which,
ever do
not
that.
sure which bluebird she's referring to,
No,
but
no.
we'll
What the colour city.
play on that. Yeah.
Anyway,
Well, great. Thank you very much. I'm sure everybody listening will find that illuminating and thoroughly interesting.
I'm sure.
Thank you, Howard Brinley Thomas.
Thank you very much for coming and doing it. I appreciate it. It's looking back on it. It's 91 years, a long time ago. We've been lucky enough to be spared for 91 years. We had so much fun and laughter during that time. It's been a very active life. I've enjoyed every minute of it. May long may it
It's
last.
a long way to continue.
Thank you all very much.
Okay. Yeah, we did mention quite often they ask how do you think you would cope being on a desert island on your own, and whether you have any practical skills that you would call upon to see you through.
I haven't.
I can't really think of too many. I know.
No. Oh, I shouldn't. I won't answer that one. No, I won't.
Yeah, perhaps you could get some twigs together and some kindling and set a fire to get rescued as soon as possible from any passing ships.
I'm not sure I even do that. No, I'm not a, I have to be honest, I'm not a technical person. I'm a home lover, but not a home worker. I can just about get run through the garden from time to time. But
I
no.
wouldn't be without the garden. I love the garden.
Yes, I miss the garden, certainly. I'm got to adapt now to my new situation. But I can't see me doing a lot of work in the garden anymore. But we'll get by. We know what the situation is. And thank you all very much.